This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome you guys back to another episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before I get started today, I want to make sure I remind you guys, as always, to make sure that you subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode. You're always on top of whenever we drop our latest stuff. If you can as well, please give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review. It'd be very appreciated, very helpful. Allows us to see what you guys like, what you guys don't like, the ways we can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, which I imagine a lot of you are, we are also on social media, so you can find us there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, the like. We can talk, we can chat, we can discuss, we can debate, and all that fun stuff that people like to do on social media. So speaking of the discussing some things, I know if you are a Sixers fan, today might not have been the greatest day, because obviously, if you know, then you know. But if you didn't know already, the Sixers played the Bucks on Saturday night. It was a big ABC game. I'm pretty sure. I'll double check on that, but I'm pretty sure it was a big ABC game. We played the Bucks, and it went horribly. If you are a Sixers fan, they got smoked. Unfortunately for them, what was the final score? What was it? They lost 119-98. I mean, the Bucks had a stranglehold on this game basically from the beginning, never really let up off the gas, and the Sixers just couldn't really do much to recover. So that's bad. I mean, but it's just one game. That's not really that big of a deal per se. And plus, everyone knows the Bucks are the best team in the East, if not the NBA. I mean, they have the best record. But I mean, best team is subjective, each their own. But the bigger news was the fact that Ben Simmons left the game. I believe it was 5 minutes in, with a back injury, some tightness or whatever. I know he'd come into the game dealing with the back, dealing with some sort of back soreness. He said he was going to be fine, said he was going to try to play through it. Didn't last very long. He played all of 5 minutes, and then he was done for the night. And according to Woj, who tweeted out, he tweeted out on Sunday. You guys are hearing this on Monday, but on Sunday, he tweeted out that he underwent some initial tests today in Philly, today being Sunday again, and will be reevaluated further tomorrow, Monday, when you guys are hearing this. So you guys might already know this news before you hear this, but in case you listened to this before, he'll be reevaluated further tomorrow. There was reportedly some level of concern surrounding the injury, and Simmons won't play Monday night when they play the Hawks. Most likely there will be new tests regarding his condition following, like the test tomorrow, obviously. So that is a big deal, because the Sixers were already, and not bad shape, not the right word, but they didn't really have a whole lot of wiggle room standing wise. They're as of this moment right now, they are currently, I think, 5th in the East. It'd be easier if my phone would load. I could tell you guys for sure. Yeah, they're currently 5th in the East. A game and a half behind the 4 seed Miami, and then 4.5 games behind the 3 seed in Boston. And only 2 games up on the Pacers, who are the 6th seed. Though the Pacers just got beat down pretty good today, again being Sunday by the Raptors earlier, who, again, I've said might be the best threat to beat the Bucks, but it's a conversation for a different day and a different podcast. A different podcast episode, I should say. But regardless, so they are, so like I said, they're 2 games up of the 6th seed. And if Ben Simmons has to miss any sort of extended period of time, they could be in trouble, though they luck out because their next 3 games are against the Hawks, who did just beat Miami, so not necessarily slash the Cavs and the Knicks. So if he has to miss 3 games this week, I mean, he picked a good week to miss them because these are teams that, in theory, the Sixers should be able to beat without him. But after that, not even after that. Their schedule's like pretty light, in all honesty. Like, all right, even in the month of March, they play the Clippers, Lakers back to back, and then they don't play another team over 500 until they play the Pacers, and then they play the Raptors, and 2 games after that, and then they play the Rockets in the end of the month. So I think they play 5 teams with a winning record in March. So yeah, all right. So the Sixers could actually be in decent shape without Simmons just because of the fact of the way the schedule has lined up for them. Now, if they do struggle, then that's even more of a disaster. But I'm just saying they only play, like I said, they play the Lakers, Clippers, Pacers, Raptors, and Rockets and turn teams over 500. I mean, they play like teams like I said, the Hawks, the Wolves, the Blazers, the Suns, Wizards, Pistons, Kings, all in there. So they're not playing necessarily like all bad teams, but like I said, there were stretch of games for him to miss. A stretch of games where you don't really play that many teams above 500 would be a good stretch of games to miss. Just personally, I mean, obviously you don't want Ben Simmons to miss any games, but if you could miss some games, now would be the time to do it because, like I said, the schedule matched up pretty favorably for the Sixers, at least in terms of teams that they should beat. Now, will they beat them all? I don't know, but teams they should beat. Now, if it's something a little bit more serious, then they could have an issue because Simmons is their 3rd leading scorer. That's 16.7 points per game. 2nd on the team in rebounds. Yeah, behind Embiid at 7.8. He's their leading assist guy at 8.2. The next highest guy is Horford with 3.8. He's averaging 2.1 steals per game, which is obviously leads the team. He's up there in blocks. I think I talked about a couple episodes ago. I talked about some of my NBA awards that he was a guy on the short list, at least in my personal opinion, for Defensive Player of the Year. I forget who I gave it to, but I'm pretty sure Anthony Davis is probably going to end up winning just because he's playing great defense on the best team in the West, and that probably will give him bonus points. Though, you always have the Goberts in there and different people like that. But Ben Simmons has been easily the Sixers' best defender this year, and he's, like I said, he's one of the best defenders in the league. So that part of it, on that side of the on that end of the floor, is already it could already be in bad shape because even though like I mentioned they don't really have they don't play that many good teams, quote unquote. But when we saw what happened when he went out, Giannis just completely dominated the Sixers. He shot 12 of 17, 31 points. Chris Middleton had 25 points. These are 2 guys that Ben Simmons could have helped defend. But obviously with him not being out there, it hurts. They play Trae Young on Monday, even though it's at home, but they still play Trae Young. Trae Young just gave Jimmy Butler, what was it? Well, not just Jimmy Butler, but 50? I think the other night. And they play the Clippers, who obviously we know who they have. They play the Lakers. We obviously know who they have. The Kings have some guys that can score. I know they play Bradley Beal. If he's not back by then, they play like the Raptors with Siakam. If he's not back by then, play Devin Booker towards the end of March. If he's not back, play Dame. Play James Harden and Russ. Like if this is a serious injury or he's compromised at all, because even when he was playing, even like before he got officially got taken out, you could see he was kind of lumbering up the court. And that's the thing about like backs is that it's not like a thing that you can just like, oh, like if you like sprain an ankle or whatever, like alright, it hurts, but eventually you could maybe try to like tape it up extra, and then so there's not as much movement with it, and then like you could at least kind of try to gut it out. With a back injury, you never really know when and if that thing's going to go, because like I said, he looked fine for the first couple minutes and he just went up for like one layup, landed, and you could just see like his whole back just kind of gave out, and that's going to be the issue. So you're going to want to sit him down for an extended period of time and hope it gets it as right as you can. But again, they're in the middle of trying to keep their playoff seeding, so not going to say they're going to rush him back. I don't think they will. They wouldn't do that. But it's just like it's a very slippery slope with that. And then, like I said, if he's at compromise at all throughout the rest of the season, that's huge because, again, he's very vital on defense. He can guard 1 through 4, not easily, but he can definitely guard 1 through 4 and potentially 1 through 5 if they go small, and he needs to. And then on the offense side, he's their primary facilitator. They don't have anyone else that really handles the ball when he's out there, for better or worse. So now, what, you're going to give... What are they doing? They're giving Raul Neto more minutes? Maybe. Are they going to trust Alec Burks to handle the ball a lot? Like, Neto didn't even play that much after the injury, but Alex Burks played 21 minutes. I know I saw a little bit. He was out there handling the ball when Simmons got hurt. Like, who's going to be the guy to initiate the offense for the Sixers? Because that's generally been Ben Simmons. And honestly, I mean, obviously, I still think they could work, but if there was one of them that I think that fits better in terms of like a guy missing for the Sixers between him and Embiid, I think it's easy. Not it's easier to replace Embiid, but the importance of Embiid is lessened when you have a guy like Simmons and you can play at Horford at the 5. Because that's, I mean, in my mind, that's what they signed him for, just Embiid insurance. I still don't know why they gave him all that money, and it hasn't really worked out when they played together. But when Embiid was out, obviously they worse, of course. But in terms of the style of in terms of the way in which they can play, it's easier to substitute Embiid because they can just play a different style, get more up and down on the court. Because obviously that's not necessarily Embiid's thing that does benefit Simmons to a degree. But with Simmons out, now I guess in theory, it could help Embiid because then obviously that takes you could potentially add another shooter onto the floor. Because obviously Ben Simmons isn't that, and that maybe will help Embiid with the spacing, but then also like the way the offense runs is just basically going to be Embiid post-ups because like when he's out there, when he's not out there, and when Simmons isn't out there initiating the offense, like who are they going to? What it's going to be the Tobias Harris show? And I mean, sure, it could be, but like that's not his thing, nor should it be. I mean, obviously he's getting paid a lot of money, but that's just not. I wouldn't. No great teams running their entire offense through Tobias. And then, I mean, like, guys like Korkmaz and stuff like that can score, but that's not their thing either. So it's just like, I don't know how they're going to run their offense. Because, like, when Embiid's going to have to sit, and obviously he's not going to be able to play 40 minutes every game. He's only averaging 30 minutes right now. It's like, where do they go for their offense? Because at least when Embiid's out, you could have Simmons on the floor potentially. And then he could initiate the offense and things could still run relatively smoothly. Without him, it's like, without him in the starting line, it's already going to be a problem. And now when Embiid goes to the bench, like, what are you going to do to run any offense with this bench unit? I don't know. It's going to, like I said, they lucked out because the schedule isn't really that bad if Simmons has to miss a couple weeks. But at the same time, they're probably going to be in some unnecessarily close games with these bad teams because the offense isn't going to look as good, in my personal opinion. Now, Brett Brown, Embiid, Horford, all those guys could shut me up and prove me wrong. And they may very well do. I guess, like I said, we'll find out Monday to see how the team looks. Though, they're playing at home, so you can take that with a grain of salt. They're great at home. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. If Simmons has some significant time, the Sixers could be, again, not miss the playoffs in trouble, but just get dropped to the 6th seed in trouble. And that's obviously not the Sixers aren't supposed to be the 6th seed in the East. It isn't what anyone envisioned before the season started, and that's not what they envisioned either, and that's not where they should be by the time the season ends. So hopefully for them, and hopefully for him, the Simmons injury isn't that serious, and he only has to miss, like I said, a couple of weeks. But if he has to miss like a month, maybe more, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the Sixers can manage that. Because like I said, they managed the Embiid injury fairly well, but this one is more, it could be worse to deal with just because, like I said, they really don't have anybody else to initiate the offense and handle the ball without Ben Simmons out there. Because they very rarely, if ever, utilize a backup point guard, like quote unquote, like an official backup point guard. And now they're going to have to, and I don't know if they're set up to do that. But I don't know. We'll see. Maybe. I mean, like I said, maybe Alec Burks can step up and be that guy to help carry some of that facilitator role for the Sixers because they're going to need somebody to do it. And like I said, I'm not sure who it's going to be yet. We'll find out more the more he's out, but he might need to be that guy. because I'm not sure who else is going to do it. Since they don't play Neto that much, and I don't know if Trey Burke is even on the team anymore. But yeah, they're going to need somebody to do it. So we'll see how the Sixers are able to withstand that injury among the other different injuries they've had to withstand this year. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so after next break, we're going to transition to a different team that's dealing with an injury as well, and how that could affect the playoff race in the West. So we'll touch on that team and the teams that could probably potentially catch them for their spot right after this break. So stay tuned.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Network. So, the team which I was referring to, that is currently now dealing with the injury, much like the Sixers are, is the Memphis Grizzlies. Jaren Jackson Jr. has a sprained left knee. It was announced Sunday afternoon that he's going to miss games. That's due to recovering from a knee sprain that he suffered against the Lakers on Friday. Jackson will be reevaluated in 2 weeks to check on the progress of his recovery. The timing of the injury is unfortunate, obviously, with Jackson being a key piece for them in the midst of a playoff race for that team. Like I said, this injury is an unfortunate one because it's not like he'll be back in 2 weeks. He'll be evaluated in 2 weeks, so that could mean another 2 weeks of like rehabbing and getting himself back together. So this could linger into a potentially 4 to 6 week injury, depending on how bad it is, and that's obviously going to be an issue. I mean, it's great for them this season, averaging almost 17 points, 4.7 rebounds, 1.6 blocks. He's shooting about 46.8% from the field, 39.7% from three. He's been good on defense for them, and obviously, he's one of the young guys that you wanted to see how he would handle a playoff push. Because obviously the Grizzlies, as we all know, are a very young team, and this was going to be a good experience for him, for Ja, for Dylan Brooks, for Brandon Clark, like some of those young guys, just to see how they handle late season important games. Now they have added some pieces in Gorgie Jang and Jordan Bell, and also they could just play Brandon Clark a little bit more, so that'll probably help deal with the loss. But again, losing one of the best players on your team for any extended period of time, I don't care who you have to back him up with, is never good. And that's unfortunately what the Grizzlies were dealing with. And I mean, this was on top of the fact that they were playing just look at their next 4 games. They just lost to the Lakers on Friday, like I said. They play the Clippers Monday, and they play the Rockets Wednesday, play the Kings, who are no slouch, and then they play the Lakers again on Saturday. So the next 4 games are rough, and I believe, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that the Grizzlies play the toughest schedule to close out the season. And again, this was already going to be an issue when they were fully healthy, and now they're not fully healthy. It might not be for a little while, so that's even going to be an even bigger issue. So this is from NBA.com, an article written on NBA.com. And it says that they have the league's toughest schedule going forward, both in regard to opponent strength, cumulative opponent win percentages, .554, and amount of road games. 16 of their final 28 games are on the road. They will have 16 games against the 13 other teams that have a winning record. They have 2 games each against the Lakers, Raptors, Rockets, Mavs, and Thunder. And of the 12 games that aren't against teams with the winning records, they have 5 games against the 5 are against 3 teams: Portland twice, San Antonio once, and New Orleans twice. They're chasing them for that playoff spot. So these are all going to be very important games for them in terms of, even like I said, even when they're not playing those good teams, now they're playing teams that are chasing them for the playoff spot. So basically, I mean, at this point in the season, every game is important, but these games are going to be extremely important for Grizzlies just because they have very little wiggle room in terms of like seeding, in terms of how seeding goes. I mean, they're still in the 8th seed as this moment, but they're They are now only 3.5 games up on both the Pelicans, who are the 9th seed. Wow. Didn't really dunk that high. But we'll get to the Pelicans in a second. And then the Blazers are tied they have the same record for that 9th spot. So they're only 3.5 games up on them, and only 4 games up on the Spurs, and then only 5 games up on the Kings. And I guess 5.5 up on the Suns, but I don't know if the Suns are going to make that push. But yeah, so then they don't really have too much wiggle room in terms of teams below them, and the Grizzlies, and not the Grizzlies, and the Pelicans are playing well. They're 7-3 in their last 10. So if the Grizzlies slide at all with Jackson being out, that could very well be an issue. I mean, it's going to be an issue regardless, but that could be a really big problem because they might not, by the time he's get back and healthy, they might not be able to recover. I mean, it's like I said, I already went through his stats, but he's their second leading scorer. So they got to figure out how to replace that. He's one of their best 3-point shooters. The only people shooting better than him are Jang, which doesn't really count. He's not really shooting that many threes. And Brandon Clark, who again isn't shooting that many threes. He's shooting 6.3. Jaren Jackson is. And like I say, he's at almost 40. So that's a big part of their offense that is now going to be missing, and I don't really know how you replace that part of it. Like I said, they have bodies they can throw there, but in terms of the ability to stretch the floor for them, that's not something that they currently have on that's not something they've had on their roster throughout this season. Now, guys can step up, like the Jay Crowders of the world could maybe shoot better from 3. Brandon Clark maybe will shoot better with more attempts. Maybe Ja be good post All-Star break. Maybe like guys like Dylan Brooks to pick up some of that slack. But like I said, it's going to be interesting to see how they manage and how they're able to handle that because, like I said, they're not really, a lot of their key players are outside like the Valanciunases and the Jay Crowders of the world are like pretty young guys. Even Valanciunas isn't really that old. He's just obviously been in. He's 27. That's like decently old, but. Again, he's just been around for a while, so he kind of knows what this playoff push is like, and he's been a part of good teams. But like Ja hasn't, Dylan Brooks hasn't, Brandon Clark hasn't, Deontay Melton hasn't, like Josh Jackson, who I think he's up with them now. I know he's in the G League for a while, but yeah, he's back up with them now. Like he hasn't there are a lot of their guys are pretty inexperienced when it comes to this, and that could be an issue. When you're now or without arguably your second best player. So that's a problem. And then speaking of that, on the flip side of things, the Pelicans, who I didn't touch on before in terms of like a team that could rise in the standings, are, like I said, they're right on their heels, and they in turn have one of the easiest schedules remaining. If not the easiest, they might actually have the easiest schedule. Hold on, let me double check that. Yeah, so this from that same NBA .com article. It says, to make things more interesting, the Pelicans have the easiest remaining schedule in the league with only 9 of their final 27 games against teams currently over 500, and the Blazers also have the second easiest schedule and the most home-heavy remaining schedule in the West. So, yeah, the Grizzlies could very well be in trouble. And then, speaking of the Pelicans, I mean, if Ja Morant propels the Pelicans to the playoffs, I mean, you're not going to give him MVP, that's absurd. But, I mean, he may very well end up snatching that Rookie of the Year award from Ja Morant, which it seems unfortunate, but I mean, hey. I mean, we'll see how it goes. They play the They just beat the Warriors today. They beat the Blazers on Friday. They play the Lakers on Tuesday, so that'll be interesting, especially since that's potentially what their matchup would be if they were able to get to that 8 seed. And that would be just storyline-wise, that'd be a very fun series. Obviously, I wouldn't expect the Pelicans to win, but I think they could at least give them a fight for 6 games, and that's honestly not what any team wants. When you have like the 1, maybe 2 seed, you're hoping to get through that first round series in 4, maybe 5 games, not really tire yourself out. So you have to go for the next series. Going up against I think it was the year that the last Lakers championship year, so 2010. I believe they played the Young Thunder in that first round. And then they took them to 16. I believe, if I remember correctly, that 6th game was the Powell tip-in for the win to help clinch the series. But yeah, that's the kind of thing where obviously it didn't really matter because they were able to hold off and win the series. But that's not what you're expecting from a finals or championship caliber team is be pushed to 6 games in the first round, especially as a 1-8. But that's very well what the Pelicans could do. So after the Lakers, they got the Cavs. Not a good team. They play the Lakers again. But after that, they play the Wolves, Mavs, Heat, Wolves again, Kings again, Jazz, Clippers. And then this is really when the schedule gets easy. After that Clippers game on the 14th of March, they play the Hawks, play the Spurs, play the Grizzlies, which will be important, play the Kings, play the Grizzlies again, play the Knicks, play the Magic, play the Hawks, and then finish out the season with only one team with a winning record, and that'll be the Sixers. And who knows if they'll be trying hard at that point because they might have already had their seed locked up, so they may be resting guys. So they close the season against the Wizards, Spurs, Hornets, Suns, Sixers, Wizards again, and the Spurs again. So again, like we talked about, their schedule, once you get past that 14th, pretty light. So the Grizzlies are going to need to do everything they can to have a big enough lead on the Pelicans by then, because if they're playing well, and again they have been since Zion came back, I guess not really came back, but since Zion started playing, they're what? I'm trying to see what their record is in the games he's played. So they have won. Let me see. I must from earlier. Okay, so they lost their first 2, then they've won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, no, that's the world. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're 7-5 in the games he played, and then since the first couple, they are 7-3. So so in the last time they were 7-3, and he's obviously been playing well. I think he had 20 points again tonight against the Warriors, or more than 20 points, 28. He's on, I think it's his 8th game in a row with 20 points. So again, the Pelicans are starting to figure some things out here, and if the Grizzlies falter at all, the Pelicans might sneak up and snatch that 8 seed right from out under them. Which is, I mean, it'd be cool because you see Zion in the playoffs against the Lakers. That'd be kind of fun, but it'd be unfortunate from the Grizzlies standpoint, just because they've been playing. And one of the big surprises of the season, been playing good all year, and then an injury could derail them a little bit, and that would be unfortunate. But who knows? I mean, I'm not going to count out Ja just yet. I mean, he's been great all season. I wouldn't expect him just to fold up under a little adversity, but I'm saying, if they do start to struggle, the Pelicans are on their heels. Like, they're coming. And, I mean, we'll see what the messaging from the organization will be, but I don't think they're not going to try to get that, let me take that back. I think they're going to try to get that playoff spot if they can. Obviously, again, not going to jeopardize Zion's health, but they're going to try to get it if they can. And like I said, they're in striking distance for it. So it's not necessarily out of the realm of possibility. And that would be big for them, big for Zion, and just big for that organization as a whole, just for post Anthony Davis to get that first season with Zion there, get to the playoffs, which I know the Pelicans struggled to do when Anthony Davis was there, so that'd be pretty interesting. But yeah, so that race for that 8 spot, and again, like I said, I didn't even mention the Blazers, who aren't going to go down without a fight either. So this entire AC race will be one of probably the most intriguing thing to watch throughout the end of the season, because most of the other spots are like pretty much sewn up in both sides, other than I guess looking to see how the Nets might fall apart with Kyrie being hurt now. Or maybe they'll play better. Who knows? But yeah, the 8 seed race is going to be one of the most entertaining things to watch, and something I'm going to keep an eye on, something I'm going to be keeping tabs on throughout the rest of the season, something that you, as the basketball fans out there, I imagine you will be keeping tabs on as well. But yeah, the Pelicans, like I'm saying, the Grizzlies, hopefully they don't slip up, because the Pelicans will be there and be ready and willing to take their spot. So after this next break, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the players, NFL players, and them being a little bit undecided on the CBA. I mean, the owners seem to have their minds made up. They seem to think it's a good idea. The players are a little bit more skeptical. So we'll talk about that and kind of like what's next for them this week in terms of like votes and stuff like all that. So, like I said, we'll talk about all that stuff, get it all squared away right after this break.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
We are back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, the NFL players and the CBA. So, it sounds like, well, if you didn't already know, I think it was earlier this week, the NFL owners kind of voted and they were good. They passed the CBA, and now it's on to the players. And now the player side of things is taking a little hold on this because they pushed back the vote in terms of like deciding on whether they want to go through this or not, just because they were still trying, because the guys seem to be fairly split. And per an article from Jeremy Fowler, an ESPN staff writer, NFL player leadership is still majorly divided over the thought of the 17-game season. That's one of the big aspects of the new CBA, would be potentially adding a 17th game. Not this upcoming season, but early as 2021. Maybe even past that. But player reps, continuing in the article, player reps fell into three categories when discussing the proposed new collective bargaining agreement, sources told ESPN. Those who do not want 17 games, those who will accept it but with some tweaks to the deal, and those who accept it as is. Deal's reps had a conference call Friday and were set to vote on the deal, but getting a 2/3 majority was far from a slam dunk. A source said the NFL Players Association decided to postpone voting, giving all parties involved a few days to sleep on the proposal and meet at this week's NFL Scouting Combine. Anything is possible at this point, the source said. The players are set to meet with NFL officials on Tuesday and could vote as early as Wednesday, but hope to go back to owners and continue to negotiate. According to ESPN's Dan Graziano, the owners have no intention to renegotiate, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter, who also reported that the NFLPA and NFL Management Council have pushed back the start of the franchise tag designation period from Tuesday to Thursday. I did see that. As well, teams will not have until March 12th to decide whether to tag a player. NFL teams currently have the option to tag two players using either the franchise tag or to just tag, but the new CBA would limit teams to one available tag. So I guess in theory, if they pass this, then now that hurts teams, because now they can only potentially tag one player. So I guess that's why they wanted to push that back, just in case they decide to pass this, and then at least now there won't be players starting to get tagged and now have to be untagged and stuff. It'd be kind of weird. Among the changes some players would like to see, according to the sources, an increased revenue share, improved pension, and further improvements to working conditions. NFLPA Executive Committee voted 6-5 against recommending the proposed CBA, which offers a guaranteed revenue share, 48% in 2021, with potential increase to 48.5 upon the start of the start of a 17-game season, which is yet to be determined. The proposal also offers at least $90,000 increases on $9,000 increase on minimum salaries, increased pay for all season activities, expanded pension eligibility, a limit of 16 days in pads at training camp, and mandated improvements to visiting teams' locker rooms. The current CBA expires in March of 2021. So, what does all this mean? Basically, it sounds as if there's a chance that the CBA might not pass. And if that does happen, then we're probably going to be looking at no negotiations again until next offseason. In my humble opinion, obviously I'm not an expert on this stuff, but just the way I'm looking at it, it seems as if the owners think this is a good deal. And I think also, I was reading some of the Dan Graziano piece, and he was talking about how the owners want to go and talk to some of these new, rework some of their TV deals because they are coming up in the coming years. They should be up fairly soon. Yeah, they're going to end in the next couple of years. They wanted to have this new CBA in place by the time they negotiate those deals, so they had something to bring to these TV networks to say like, hey, this is what we're doing. There's more money going to be coming in here. Here's why you guys should buy these rights and blah blah blah, all that fancy stuff. So I think that's probably the reason why they don't want to negotiate, because the longer that takes, then the longer it takes for them to get back to the TV networks, and then obviously, then that slows their process down. And also, I guess they seem to be pretty unified on this. So I guess in their minds, they're giving the players a lot. I mean, they are definitely improving things, but obviously their biggest change for them is adding a 17th game, which does nothing for the players and really only helps the owners, because then obviously they're getting more money that way. But yeah, so that's a big thing, and I kind of understand why the players are split on it, because on one hand, all right, you're playing a 17th game. That's an extra game check, which is nice. And I think that's probably why this is why I honestly think players are split. Is because the guys at the bottom of the roster, I'll get to that in a second, but you saw, like, I think J.J. Watt and Richard Sherman were talking on Twitter about how they didn't really like the deal and all that stuff, and I think that's kind of the issue with the way that the NFLPA, and well, not the NFLPA, but just the way the players are kind of positioned against each other in terms of, like, not everybody's in the same tax bracket, obviously, much like the rest of society. Like, you have, like, Rich, so I'm talking about, like, the superstars, like, the people that are making, like, quarterback money, which are mainly quarterbacks, but then, like, you have Aaron Donalds, J.J. Watts, Richard Sherman's, who else? Like, some big-time receivers, like Julio Jones, are trying to make that money. Different other defensive players, some corners, whoever. You have those guys at the top. You have the guys that are, like, in the middle, making, like, the 10 to 20 range, and then you have the guys at the lower tier. So I think for the lower tier guys, I think they're probably, obviously I don't know exactly how this breaks down, but I could see them being on the side of, like, yeah, we'll fine with the 17th game, because again, they get more money, they could use the money. And also, I guess they don't really play that much, so there's not really that much of an injury risk for them. But obviously, the next game check is nice. The people probably in the middle are like, all right, I'll do the 17th game, but then we got to get, like, better pensions, better health care, different things of that nature. Because I'm not just going to have my body out there for nothing. And then you have, like, the top tier guys that are going to be like, yeah, no, we're not playing the 17th game. And I think that's kind of where the issues come in, is because the top tier guys are the guys that are the most important. If they're not on board, then it's just not going to work. Like, if you don't have, like, the elite players that, again, are the people that people are coming to see and that want to see, if they're not on board with this, then the 17th game thing is never really going to pass. And I think from their standpoint, I understand them holding firm, and I believe they should hold firm. I know I've talked about on this podcast a couple of times the fact that I still think even if they have a 17th game, it should be like a 16-game max. Like, no player should ever play 17 games. I don't see, from all the health things we know with concussion and CTE and different things, I don't see how playing a 17th game makes the game safer for these guys and their bodies, because it's already hard enough to get through a 16-game season. Adding an extra game even if that means taking a preseason game out, which again is mainly for the guys that are just going to end up getting cut. So they're not even really, or just like mainly for guys that are going to get cut or at the bottom of the roster and backups and stuff like that. So they're not really the ones that are playing in the regular season game. So it's just like, all right, the less preseason games doesn't, like, who does it really help? All it does is just give teams less time to evaluate their full roster, in my personal opinion. This, again, preseason games aren't necessarily aren't really that necessary anymore due to the fact that a lot of teams are kind of just shying away from them and like sitting guys out. So I understand why it makes sense to shorten them, because like by that fourth one, no one important is playing. Just like no one's like really filling up a stadium or anything. So it's like, what's the point? But then again, the teams the owners weren't going to lose that game. They had a 20-week season from preseason through the regular season, so they're not just going to, in order to get rid of a preseason game, they also have to add another game on the back end. So I understand why they're doing it, but from a player standpoint, I don't understand. Playing 17 games makes no sense to me. Like, I would never agree to that. Yeah, I don't care how much more money or how much more revenue it could end up making me. There's, like, again, there's only so much that the money I'm making can help me take care of my body. And I think that should be of the highest and utmost importance for these players, is just being able to preserve their body past football. Because at best, if you have a really nice long career, we're talking about, 10 to 15 years, like that's a very, very solid NFL career. So, of your life, if you say you guys live to like 70, we're talking about what that's like a fifth of their life that is in the NFL. Next 15 divided by 70 is like 21%. So yeah, it's like 20% of their life is in the NFL. So there's, and then post NFL life, they leave at like 35. Anywhere between like 35 and 40, they have an extra 30 years they have to live post NFL. And obviously, the extra money will help you live that post NFL life, but also more important is the year of health. And adding a 17th game, every extra game you have to play is another risk on that long term health for these kind of players. Not for these kind of players, but just for the players in general, I should say. And that's why, if I'm them, I would not go for it. And I could see why they had to push the boat back, because I honestly thought that there was going to be a lockout, because I didn't think that they were going to find a way to be able to. Cause I figured the owners were going to push for an extra game, and the players weren't going to go for it, and we're going to get a lockout. Not this summer, but like the next summer, obviously, kind of like how they had in 2011. Thought there was like a little lockout. And that's how I think it should be. But again, this is the issue with the players, because the owners can be on the same page. So they're all rich. They're varying degrees of rich, but they're all rich. So they can be on the same page and like, all right, this is what we want to do. The players are varying levels of rich. Or some of them aren't even wealthy. They're just like rich. They're just like well off compared to the rest of the country. And because of that, they can't really afford to have a work stoppage. They need to. These game checks are how they pay for everything. How they pay for their rent, how they pay for their family, how they pay for their financial advisors, how they pay for their agents, how they maybe support some people within their extended family. Like, if that money dries up, then they have nothing. Because a lot of these guys, not a lot of these guys, some of these guys don't have college degrees. They may not be able to get normal jobs. So they are struggling. But if you have, like I said, J.J. Watt, he just got to host SNL the other day. Like, he's going to be fine if they have a work stoppage. Patrick Mahomes, he'll be fine if they have a work stoppage. Russell Wilson, he'll be fine if they have a work stoppage. Like there's certain people that can withstand that better than others, and I think that's why the players are so split on this. And it's honestly why they may never fully agree. They may just get enough votes for it to pass, but they're never going to fully agree on this, just because everybody's at different levels, and the money that they could potentially lose is of more important to some players than it is to others. And I think that's part of the reason, and that's part of the reason why that you could see that I kind of figured there would be a work stoppage. I didn't think they would go for that. In order to get what they need, they may really need to push these owners, because I think at the end of the day, no one wants to go without football. And the owners, though they have money elsewhere, a lot of their money is tied to these franchises, and if there's no games, then they don't make any money, so they wouldn't want that either. So I think that's probably their best negotiating tool will be to call these owners bluffs to see, like, are you really not going to go negotiate? All right, fine, then we'll wait till next offseason, and if you don't like it better, then we'll have a strike or protest, or I guess I think they would go on strike. But yes, I would honestly advise them to call the owners bluff. Now, do I think they will? No. I think they'll end up caving. I don't know if it's now or if it's next offseason, but I could see them ending up caving just because that's again, at the end of the day, a lot of these guys need that money. So, and I completely understand if I were making that much money, I wouldn't want to be without it either. So, I advise people to do what's best for them, and what's best for me might not be what's best for somebody else. So I can see why they're kind of split on this. But it'd be interesting to see how this kind of plays out over the next couple days. Even I guess for me, mainly just a couple days. So they should have decided whether they're going to vote to pass it or not. And then if they do, and we'll see how that goes over. And if they don't, then we'll see how that goes over. Because that'll be a big storyline coming out of this week in the NFL, depending on what happens with this new CBA. So that's something I'm going to keep my eyes on. And as many football fans out there, I imagine you guys will be keeping your eyes on it as well to see what happens. Whether the players I don't want to call it caving, because they are getting some good perks, relatively speaking. You have some good perks in the new CBA. So whether they decide to go along with it or they play hardball and no, we're not doing the 17th game. Which, again, I think they should. They should play hardball in the 17th game, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. So that'll be interesting to see as it plays out throughout this week. So after this break, we're going to come back and we'll talk about week 3 of the XFL. I mean, the season's almost halfway over now. We're starting to see some teams separate, some players separate themselves. And, we got to talk about the Houston Roughnecks being the best team in the league. My Houston Roughnecks being the best team in the league. I'm joking, but like I said, we'll talk about all that stuff for after the break. So stay tuned.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
As I said, week 3 of the XFL is now officially in the books. And at the very least, I would say compared to week 2, there was a lot more scoring being put up. In the games, the games yesterday, they had a tight, not a tight one, but a high scoring one between the Houston Roughnecks and the Vipers, 34-27. The Roughnecks came out on top. They're the only undefeated team left in the league, which we will get to in a moment. But, I mean, P.J. Walker still out there doing his thing. Cam Phillips still out there doing his thing. I mean, those two look like guys that, at least in theory, could parlay this 8-week tryout, if you will. Or I guess it's officially, I'll take that back, 10-week tryout, if you will, and then obviously we'll see what happens from there in the playoffs and stuff. But this 10-week tryout into potentially an invite to like a training camp or something, which I think is at the end of the day and at the heart of the league, that's what you want to do. I don't know if they necessarily, I don't think they're going to necessarily want to take over the NFL, because that's just not going to happen. That's unreasonable. But this could be an alternative feeder option, because that's basically what the NCAA is. It's just basically like the feeder league, so that you can like groom and grow the players until they're ready to get to the NFL, and then obviously they leave the college and then go to the NFL. But this could be an alternative to that, just because there are guys, whether it's guys like I think they might both be on the Blackhawks, but St. Louis Blackhawks, Battlehawks. Yeah, Battlehawk, excuse me. Jordan Tamu, who used to be at Ole Miss, but I think he was ineligible this upcoming season because of him playing at a military academy for like a year or two. So then he decided to come. He's only like 22 years old. And it was just like, all right, instead of doing nothing, going to Canadian Football League or whatever, it was a good opportunity for people to see his ability, see how he handles the locker room. Because, again, college is one thing, but these XFL players are grown men who used to be in the league and obviously want to get back into the league. So this isn't like an easy group of people to lead necessarily. So this would be an interesting test for him to see how he handles that. And obviously, I think they're 2-1 now, so he's handling it fairly well, and he's played decently well these first 3 weeks. So that's interesting from their standpoint. From his standpoint, at least, I guess, just say, as using this opportunity to potentially grow as a player and grow as a leader, so he can be ready for the NFL. And then also, I think, like I said, on the same Battle House team, there's Kenny Robinson, I believe, who was ruled ineligible for this upcoming season, then decided to leave school. So I think his mom has cancer. I don't want to get this story wrong for you guys. But, yeah, so Robinson, who was 21, is the first player who left college eligibility on the table to jump to the XFL. He's plays part defensive back, part linebacker. He's a very important story. And a mistake made him a potential football pioneer. He played at WVU the last 2 seasons, but was dismissed from the team for committing an academic misconduct violation. He entered the transfer portal, but said a disagreement with West Virginia about an unpaid bill kept him from securing his transcripts. So then that was a big issue. And obviously he couldn't leave to go pro just yet. So he's signing a 1-year contract with the XFL would let Robinson meet NFL draft requirements, but not block him from entering it. He would play immediately in the XFL instead of watching an entire season from the sideline, which would have been required by the NCAA if he transfers to another college. And also he would pay him, and he could use that money to assist his mom, who was diagnosed with cancer. All right, that's what I thought. And also the XFL offered to help him pay for online classes, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. That could be a potential avenue for other players, whether it's, say, if you're a guy like, well, obviously not Trevor Lawrence because he's already set, but like, say somebody comes along, like, who else? I guess like one of these other top prospects comes along and they play 2 years in college, they've done all they can do, and you're basically just trying to wait out this next season and not risk injury. Which, I mean, I guess, again, you could have in the XFL, though I think, there hasn't been too many serious injuries from what I've seen, or from what I've heard. Well, yeah, but at the very least, you risk, like, you run that risk while also getting paid. Because that's, I mean, they're getting paid a lot of money. Not necessarily, but they're getting paid a lot more than they'd be getting paid in college, which is nothing. So that could be, those are the kind of players that could, the XFL could kind of pitch to, and kind of be like, hey, you've done just about everything you can do in college. Or maybe there's a scenario where you want to transfer for whatever reason and you don't want to sit out a year. So, all right, cool. You can come here, play for a year, still be draft eligible, still do all that stuff, and then also will help you get your degree. So I think that's the thing. That's what the XFL could be used for, and I think and like I said, at the end of the day, this league is supposed to be for players that want to get back into the league, and I think some of these players are going to use that opportunity to potentially parlay that chance into something greater for themselves. One of those guys, like I said, being from the Houston Roughnecks, PJ Walker, who was with the Colts practice squad for a couple seasons, and I think also, I'm pretty sure I heard on one of the broadcasts, I think it was last week, that Andrew Luck called his dad, who's the commissioner, and put in a good word for PJ, and that's obviously how he ended up here, and he's been lighting it up. He threw for 306 and 3 touchdowns in the game Saturday against the Tampa Bay Vipers, who obviously that wasn't expected to be as good as who weren't expected to keep the game that close, but they did. And regardless, he still found a way to pull it through. He also had 34 yards rushing and a touchdown. And yeah, for the season, he has over 700 passing yards, completing at 64%, 7.1 yards per attempt, 10 touchdowns, 1 interception, a 112 rating. And he's the kind of player that this league should be building off of and marketing to a degree and like trying to push, because there are guys who maybe, whether it's size, I know he's only like 5'11", I think, so maybe it's size restrictions or what have you, maybe haven't gotten the chance to showcase themselves as well as they would like to at the NFL level. And this league will give those guys an opportunity with an actual, and that's not like the AAF where it was going to fold up money-wise. I think they have enough money. I think they said for like 3 seasons they've had, I think of that St. Louis game, they had their first sellout just because St. Louis hadn't had a football game in a few years since whenever the Rams moved. But yeah, if this league continues to grow and continues to have players like P.J. Walker or like Cam Phillips, who his receiver, who in that same game had 8 catches, I should say, for 194 yards and 3 touchdowns. And he has 7 touchdowns all the season in those 3 games. So if you have players like that are bringing excitement to the league, or even like I said, the Kenny Robinsons who have a good story, that'll keep people intrigued. And that's honestly, at the end of the day, that's kind of all they're hoping for, is the fact is to try to keep people intrigued week after week. Because that's the reason why a lot of people watch. That's the reason why people watch professional sports, because they're invested to a degree. And obviously, it's hard when these teams are new. But if you're not invested in players, if you're invested in players that maybe were with your team before, or went to a college that's you're familiar with or is nearby to you, or if you're just as a team that's playing in near where you live, like if you live in Seattle or you live in DC or Tampa, and it's like, all right, this is something cool to go watch or go see in that weird February, like, or in that weird time between like when it's just really baseball and hockey, no offense to hockey, but when it's just really basketball, I should say, basketball and hockey, and baseball hasn't started up yet and the football season's done. Like, all right, it gives us something else to do. And I think that's kind of how the XFL has to do, is just try to find a way to get people to gravitate towards a league in some degree. And I think when you have guys that walk, I know Carter Jones kind of struggled this week for DC. So then they lost. They're now 2-1. But if you have, I think they lost to LA. The LA team, who has Jaren Johnson, who was a NFL quarterback for a few years, the Wildcats. But yeah, if you have interesting guys like that, even though, like I said, Cardell Jones struggled, but he was a guy who coming into over the first 2 weeks had been up there with P.J. Walker as one of the best players in the league. So you have guys that people are interested in to watch, whether it's because of their story or whether it's because of their play on the field, what have you. That's what's going to keep the XFL thriving. That's at least why I'm still interested, because P.J. I'm from Jersey. P.J. Walker is a guy from Jersey. He played against my local high school, it's not the high school I went to, but that's a different story. He played against my local high school, so I've heard about him play. I saw him play. He went to Temple, which isn't that far. I heard about him and kind of kept tabs on him, but just like heard about some of his games. I know he was pretty good those last couple of years he was there. But yeah, so that's the guy I'm interested in. That's why I'm keeping tabs on the whole league, but keeping tabs on Houston for that specific reason, because all right, I'm invested in this guy, seeing how he does and seeing if he can make his way back into the league. And I think those kind of guys that have either cool stories or are playing really well should be the guys that the XFL is pushing and getting people to want to tune in, to want to watch. Because at the end of the day, like I'm saying, this league will only grow if people continue to be interested and continue to want to watch week after week after week. That's why, again, like I said, we watch professional sports. It's because we're interested week after week after week. And due to the fact that this is a new thing, it's hard to have that right away. But it seems like at least when you see these home games, I mean, obviously some of them are playing in NFL stadiums, so they're not entirely filled. But there's a decent fan base for these teams. I think it's just because it's just another thing to do. People love football, so there's no reason why they shouldn't love this football. And obviously, is it the level of the NFL? No, obviously, because these guys aren't NFL caliber players to a degree. At least some of them aren't. So that's why they're playing in this league. But at the same time, the games are still good enough and still interesting enough, and funny, cool things happen. I know they just had a kick return for a touchdown for the first time this week with a little razzle-dazzle in there. And that's the kind of thing that's going to keep this league going, is that excitement, those cool plays, those cool moments. I mean, things like that. And obviously some of these sideline soundbites are kind of gonna keep the league going just because they're interviewing everybody after everything, which probably will be annoying by like week 7 or 8 for some of these players. But as of right now, it's still cool. They still seem happy to do it. But yeah, that's another interesting thing that's cool about the league that will keep people interested going forward. And yeah, like I said, that's honestly what the Expo has tried to. I've been saying that for a couple of weeks, just trying to find ways to keep people intrigued. And they've done a decent job of that, at least for me personally, just through the guys that have been playing well. But at the end of the day, they're going to have to continue to do that and continue to hope that the players on the field are playing well. Because at the end of the day, that's what's really most important is the play on the field. Because that's what people are going to tune in and want to see. They're not going to want to see a bad product. So if the product stays the way it's at, which is like pretty solid, I mean, obviously there's some good teams, some bad teams. That's the nature of the game. Not every NFL game is well played. Not every NBA game is well played. That's just the nature of sports. Teams have bad days, players have bad days. So that's not shocking. But again, if they can find a way to push these guys, push these cool stories, push these cool moments, to continue to keep people intrigued, I think then the league might have a chance. And like I said, I'll be tuned in next week. You should be tuned in next week. If there's a game you want to watch, keep an eye out for that Roughnecks Dallas Renegades game. This is they're pushing the times back later. This one's Sunday at 4. So I mean, if you're not out and about on Sunday, that'd be a good one to watch. Again, like I said, PJ Walker is probably the most exciting player in the league, in my personal opinion, through the 3 weeks. So if you're going to pick a team to watch and a player to keep an eye on, that'd be my guy as of this moment. But, I mean, to each your own. You guys can pick and choose whoever you like. So we'll see how the XFL goes next weekend. But after this break, speaking of weekends, there was a big fight this weekend, Saturday night, and we got to talk about it. The good, bad, and the ugly. And there was, I mean, if you're one of the fighters, it's all good. For the other one of the fighters, it was all bad. So we'll talk about all that stuff right after this break. So stay tuned.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Podcast Network. So, if you didn't know, which I imagine, I mean, not everybody's a boxing fan, so I would get it if you didn't know, but for those of you that didn't, Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury, number 2, went down Saturday night in Vegas, one of the most anticipated rematches in a long time, one of the most anticipated fights in general in a long time, just because of the way the last one ended due to the fact that it was a tie. And whenever there's a tie, you kind of want to see, you like, obviously in combat sports like that, you don't, or just sports in general, people watch to see a winner and a loser. So, that tie is what added to the intrigue of the fight, just to see, alright, who's actually gonna, you didn't think it was gonna, you were pretty sure it was gonna end in a tie again. So, you're like, alright, who's gonna come out victorious and be crowned? I guess you can throw Anthony Joshua in there too, but crowned arguably the best heavyweight in the world. And you saw the separation between the two fighters early on in that fight. I mean, from the first round, Tyson Fury was bringing it to Deontay Wilder, which is a thing that not many people will do because many people are afraid of the right hand. And I believe Tyson Fury said, I don't know if it was after that fight or in the lead up to this one, that after he got knocked out and was able to get back up from the hit in the 12th round of their last fight, because even after he got back up, he was kind of coming after him for the rest of that round and kind of made it close there at the end. Even though, like I said, it eventually ended up in a tie, but he made that 12th round closer than probably many people thought it would be, just due to the fact that he was able to put him down in such devastating fashion. Wilder was. He said he figured something out, and whatever he figured out, clearly Wilder didn't tweak anything to help change that game plan, because he came out on the attack, and from the first moment it seemed like Fury was going to be the better man that night. And I mean, you could argue, because like many people will, that, and honestly I probably will agree in this regard, that Fury probably should have won the first fight. Just if you go over the totality of the fight, Fury was probably better for more of it than Wilder was, though obviously that big knockdown at the end probably helped sway some people's opinions towards his direction. But Wilder is a guy that, technically speaking, not really a very sound fighter. Has his hands low, doesn't really do a whole lot. Basically, just always looking for that killer right hand. And I think I talked about before the fight about how that was always his great equalizer. It was like, even if he was losing, even if he was down, even if it looked like he was done for, all he needed was just to land one right hand, knock somebody out, bada bing, bada boom, the fight was over. And that's kind of what he relied on. That's honestly probably why he was a little bit upset at the ending, which we will get to in a moment, of that, because he knows he can do that. But Fury really wasn't giving him the chance to do that because he was on the attack the whole time. And I think that's an easy thing to do when you're Tyson Fury, who was 2 inches taller, had 2 inches longer reach, and weighed 40 more pounds than him. Which, again, I think was a conscious decision from his part, even though Wilder upped his weight too, so it wasn't like both these guys came in. It wasn't like it was just Fury that came in heavier. But you could see from the beginning that every time they got tied up, Fury was laying on him. And I mean, eventually, that extra 40 pounds is gonna tire you out. And Fury knew that, so he was like, all right, every time we get tied up, all right, fine, you want to grab, you want to hold, all right, I'm just going to lean on you for 5 seconds, how long it takes the ref to get me off of you. And if you do that time after time after time, eventually the guy's going to get tired. And it seemed like, I think he got knocked down for the first time in the third round. Yeah, because I knocked down twice. I think he tripped and fell 2 other times. But the first knockdown, when they kind of separated them and he hit him with the boop boop 1-2, the second one behind the head, knocked Fury down. He looked at the ref all confused, like, what just happened? That was kind of funny in hindsight. But yeah, so after that, it seemed like something was off. Rod, I know he said after the fight that he was going through some things. His legs weren't really right. Which, I mean, if that's the case, then you could tell from the beginning, because he was wobbly the last couple rounds. It just seemed like he was just trying his best to stay up on his feet. And I give him credit for even though he did go down for the second time, officially with that body shot right to the ribs. That was like it hurt. I mean, all his punches look like they hurt. That's why I'm not a boxer. But you could tell just like his legs just weren't under him. Basically, because that was the third round. From the third round on, you could just see like he was kind of wobbling. Even when he was standing up, he was kind of just like trying to always keep his balance. And I don't think they officially said he like ruptured his eardrum or whatever. But I know that if he did, then that would have thrown off his equilibrium, as they were talking about at the fight, and people were talking about on Twitter and stuff. That would mess up his equilibrium, and that's why he would have been so off balance most of the fight. But even outside of that, like I said, he just wasn't the aggressor really at any point in the fight. And I think, like I said, that's the easy thing for Tyson Fury to do because he's bigger and weighs more than him. But that's not a luxury that's not something he's had to deal with for most of his career, because he was Wilder's what, like 6'7", weighing at 230. This fight looked like literally pure muscle. Like, very rarely is a guy ever going to be bigger than that. So that was just not something he's had to deal with. So he could always risk. Now, I want to say risk is not the right word, but he could always have a situation where he's going to be the bigger guy and people are going to be afraid of that right hand, so they're not going to really try to get too close to him. And then he can move them around the ring, get them into the positions he wants to be in, and then go from there. And I think from the moment the bell rung, Tyson Fury was like, "We're not going to have that happen. I'm not going to let you catch me with on these rights." And if you're always on the defense, you don't feel comfortable throwing that right. And I think that was, again, Tyson Fury is a better technically sound boxer than Wilder. So again, none of this stuff was really all that surprising, especially based on how the first fight went. That really, if he had scored that knockdown in the last round, he probably loses. Wilder does, but still at the same time, it was wild to see that it went down exactly like that. Like, no one, even if you thought Fury was going to win, you didn't expect him to win this easily. You thought Wilder would put up more of a fight, and like I said, I think, who was it, Teddy Ass or someone gave him, I think people might have given him the second round. Like, might. Every other round, it was clear Tyson Fury won. And then obviously it got stopped. But yeah, every other round was clear he won. Like, it wasn't even like, oh, this could go either way. Like, no. It was literally like, alright, he won that round, he won this round, he won this round, he won, like, it was all bad. And that's why, like I said, they could have honestly stopped the fight in like the 5th round, because he was shaky by the 5th round. The fact that he made it to 7, I mean, good for him. But at the end, his corner did end up throwing in the towel. Don't know what kind of decision was made, but they eventually did end up throwing in the towel. And honestly, from my standpoint, not being a boxer, so not knowing what it's like to have your corner throw in the towel, literally. But as a fan watching, I was very happy for Wilder's sake, just because this was more so not really an if Fury was going to win. It's like, all right, which round is this fight going to end in? That's the way I felt. I was like, barring a miracle, which we didn't get, but barring a literal miracle, Tyson Fury was going to win that fight. It was just like, how long was it going to take? And technically, it only lasted the 7th round. But it was like, even if they didn't stop it, at some point again, he was going to get knocked down again. Probably not going to be able to get up. Like, you were just prolonging the inevitable, really, at that point. And I think that's what his corner realized. And they're like, look, we've seen enough. There's no reason for me to just let my guy get beat up like this. I mean, he was bleeding from his ear for multiple rounds. He was bleeding from his mouth for multiple rounds. It looked bad. It looked bad. And I understand him, Wilder, being like, hey, if I'm going to lose for the first time, I want to lose, like, get knocked out, lose, or like lose by decision or whatever, not have my corner throw in the towel. Or even have the ref stop it. If the ref wants to stop it, all right. That's his prerogative. But not have my corner throw in the towel. So I get that. But at the same time, I'd imagine, again, not being someone that's trained a boxer, but being a trainer, you kind of know what your guy can and can't handle. And at a certain point, if you don't see him fighting back the way that he should be, you're just like, all right, we no need to have irreversible damage done to him, his head or his brain or his jaw or his ear or whatever. Because that's what they were going to risk if the longer he was in there. So, I completely understood them throwing the towel. It was for the best. Even if Wilder doesn't agree with it, he was going to lose. More like 99.9% chance he was going to lose. The 0.1% chance that Tyson Fury got cocky and Deontay Wilder was going to land a punch, cool. But at the time when it stopped, he was backed into a corner, literally getting punched in the face, with very few punches being thrown back. So it was like, all right, they might have had to step in and stop it, even if the corner didn't. So he was in bad position. He was getting himself back into the ropes, back into corners for the last couple rounds. It was like he was very, very rare. He was on the attack. I think he got out punched. Like, I think Tyson Fury threw I think the stats were like 100 more punches. He threw like 58, or landed 58 power punches to Wilder's 18. Like, it was, all the stats were wildly in favor of Tyson Fury. So it was like, all right, if they gotta stop the fight, they gotta stop the fight. I'm not gonna be mad about it, because it was bad for Wilder, very bad. So now Tyson Fury is now the new WBC champ. He was already a lineal champ, kept that Ring Magazine belt, and now it sets up the potential for a third fight, which I have no desire to see. I don't need to see Wilder get beat down again, unless I would only be interested in the third fight if you told me that he was, but all the training he did do for this fight, he's going to throw it out and start all over. Because if that's not the case, he's going to come in with the same philosophy. He's still going to come in with his hands down. They're trying to fight instead of trying to box, and just trying to land the one right hand to knock him down. If that's what his plan is, no, I don't want to see it. Nope, I'm good. I am super good. You can keep that. Just let me get Fury and Joshua. Which, I mean, Fury will probably beat Joshua too, because, I mean, I don't think Fury would have got knocked down 4 times by Andy Ruiz and ended up losing. I don't think that would have happened to him. But again, you never know. But yeah, so I think that's probably the best bet. And I mean, that would set England or the UK or wherever technically it's located on fire. They'd have to, I don't know if Wembley Stadium would be big enough to hold that fight. That's how big that fight would be over there. And again, it makes sense. Joshua's got all these belts. Fury's got all these belts. They might as well just match up. Though, I mean, if I'm Joshua, I don't know, because it's a bad situation for him. Because the two guys you're going to fight are Wilder or Fury. Wilder, well, you're better technically sound than him, can knock you out. And Fury's just a better fighter than you. So, it's either you risk getting knocked out or you risk just getting outboxed for 12 rounds. Not really necessarily a good position for Joshua to be, but then, yeah, you never know. No one thought Ruiz was going to beat him. So, upsets happen. And I, in my opinion, him beating Fury would be an upset. Just because of just how dominant Fury looked especially this match, but even in the last match to a degree, and just the fact that obviously Joshua has had his missteps and Fury's still undefeated at the moment. So, and plus the way he boxes is just like weird. So it's not like it doesn't make him like that easy of a target to hit. So yeah, I think that's probably the next. I'd rather see that and whatever happens with that than I would see Fury Wilder Part 3. Even though I think they have a rematch clause in their contract where they could trigger a rematch. But if I'm Wilder's people, I'm like, let's get him let's get his boxing training up first before we have him fight Tyson Fury again. Because it'd be hard to. Again, they make a lot of money doing it, but it'd be hard to sell the general public on seeing that fight again after what we just saw happen to Wilder on Saturday. No, everyone's going to be like, why would we watch this again? We already know what's going to happen. And again, you'd have to convince me that Wilder's going to train completely different and do everything differently in this fight, which there's no guarantee of that. So why would I risk spending my money and wasting my time watching him get beat down again? I mean, I guess if you like watching Wilder get beat down, then you'll be more than willing to spend your money. But I am more so a person that likes watching good fights. And, well, good, I mean, not that was a bad fight, but just like competitive back and forth, where it doesn't seem like one guy just getting pummeled the whole time. That's basically what we saw Saturday. So I'm all the way out on Wilder Fury 3 at the moment. My mind may change soon, but as of right now, I'm out. So give me Joshua, Tyson Fury in Wembley or whatever the biggest stadium they have over there, or even make a bigger stadium. I don't know what they need to do to get to fill that, to hold as many people as they can. Because I mean, like I said, any person over there is going to want to go to that fight. So they're going to need probably a bigger venue than they currently have over there. But I would all be for that. So like I said, we'll see what happens this week. If there's any news coming out about things, or Joshua saying he does or doesn't want the fight. Obviously, there's only 2 people really left for him to fight, unless he's going to fight Ruiz again, which that'd be weird. But yeah, so those are the guys. Or maybe they trigger the rematch clause. Who knows? But like I said, Tyson Fury, he's the man. He's the best, at least at heavyweight at this point in time. And until somebody beats him, that's my thoughts on that. And I mean, Joshua got all his belts. Let's see it. I would love to see it. I would, to quote the great Monique meme, I would like to see it. So hopefully we get to see it. So after this last break, we're going to come back and I'm going to do a little quarterback movement roulette type of game where I'm going to pick a team, pick 2 quarterbacks, and then say which one I prefer based on like skill, how much they'll cost, like where the team's at in their like stage, like if they're like rebuilding, win now, playoff ready type of thing. And it could be from any of the free agent quarterbacks, could be like teams that potentially might trade for a quarterback, even potentially teams that could draft a quarterback in April. So like I said, we'll talk about all that stuff and we'll play that little game right after this. So stay tuned.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Quarterback carousel of 2020. Now, one guy we're not going to have on here is Drew Brees, just because he's staying with the Saints, as per reports and as per his Instagram account. He's coming back for one more year. So the Saints needing a quarterback this year. Not necessarily true though. I'm only going to do a couple teams, but if I were going to go longer, potentially say, would I rather have would you rather have Taysom Hill or a second round pick? Do they have a second round pick? I don't know. But a first round pick quarterback, whether that's Jordan Love or Jacob Eason or somebody like that, be the potential heir apparent to Drew Brees. I think that'd be an interesting discussion to have. But the first team we're going to start out with, and not to say I'm the originator of this game, I think my dad told me that Will Kane or somebody had trades, and I thought it was pretty interesting. I didn't listen to it, but I'm not going to say that I'm the creator of this this fun little situation I'm putting together. But so for the first team, so say I'm going to go with the Bucks. So say I'm the Bucks. Do I want to franchise tag Jameis Winston and run that back one more year? Or do I bring in Phillip Rivers on a 1 to 2 year deal? And if I'm the Bucks, obviously, like I said, based on ability, based on age, based on contract, I would probably say I would go with Jameis. Yeah, I think in that scenario, I'd probably go with Jameis, just because the player you know is better than the player you don't know. In terms of, even though Bruce Arians has had success with veteran quarterbacks older in their careers, whether it's, most recently with Carson Palmer. I think he was even there with Andrew Luck for a little bit, and he had good years there, because when Chuck Pagano had to leave, I think he was the coach. The interim coach that stepped in there. But yeah, so, even though Andrew Luck's young, but regardless. Jameis, if the issue with him was just the vision thing, and he got the surgery, the eye surgery, to hopefully fix his sight, and hopefully maybe cause him to throw less balls to the opposing team. Next year. So if I have that, and they have a guy who just threw for 5,000 yards, and who threw for 30 touchdowns, 30 picks. So if I have that, and I know I can go, I think, what did they go, 7-9 with him this year? Why would I risk bringing in a guy who was just as bad, if not worse, than Jameis was this past season? And is also much older. Jameis is currently 26. He just turned 26 a month ago. So he's still a relatively young guy. Still has a chance to improve. Phillip Rivers, on the other hand, is currently 38, so that's a 12-year difference. And he was just as bad as Jameis was last year. And he only threw 23 touchdowns, 20 picks. And so it's not even like he was putting up worse numbers, and he's like, again, he's older, so you don't really know. Like, once Father Time hits you, it hits you. Like, there's no really, again, unless you're Tom Brady, there's no real going up as you get older. Even like you saw Peyton Manning that last year in Denver, that was rough. I felt bad. It was sad watching him kind of get carried to that final Super Bowl by that Broncos team. It was sad to watch, honestly. But yeah, so if I'm the Bucks, do I give Phillip Rivers a 1-year deal and then let Jameis go and then start over? Because you're starting over regardless of what happens next year. Because even if best case scenario, boom, they make the playoffs, probably as the wild card because the Saints are still in your division. But best case scenario, you make the wild card with Phillip Rivers. You'll lose maybe in the divisional round. All right, and then now like I said, Phillip Rivers will then be 39, and unless he wants to come back for another year, you're now in need of a quarterback. But in theory, if you can fix things with Jameis, now you have your quarterback for the next 5 to 10 years. Assuming you franchise tag him or whatever, I would not give him a long contract extension. I can't risk that. I'll give him 1 more year. How this year goes, all right. Now you hope it's not an aberration or a mirage or something. He just plays extremely well and all of a sudden goes back to being Jameis again. But if I'm the Bucks, I would go risk that just because at least you know what to expect with Jameis. Like Phil, you know he knows the offense. You know he's going to turn the ball over a lot. Like those are things you know. Now Phil Rivers, you come in, he got to learn the whole new offense. Got to get the chemistry down with Mike Evans, with O.J. Howard, with Chris Godwin. Like I said, got to learn the offense, learn the terminology, all that stuff. Come into a new situation, new locker room, new conference, all the different new rivals, all that stuff. Have to deal with that, and also his play has been declining. Well, his play declined this past year, I should say. And like I said, at certain points last year, this person who had to watch way too many Chargers games because I started Phillip Rivers in fantasy a couple times. He looked cooked in certain times. I'm saying he's still very much an NFL caliber quarterback, but he just looked like he didn't have that much left in the tank. And like I said, when you're older, when the tank's empty, the tank's empty. You can't for an athlete standpoint, it's hard to refill it, especially at that age. So he looked like he didn't have that much left. And now he might come back and surprise some people though. But like the issue with him wasn't the weapons. Like he had good weapons in San Diego too. I've been saying San Diego. I meant LA. He had good weapons in LA. Like that wasn't the issue. It was just that he just didn't play that well. And I'm saying, did Jameis necessarily play that well this year? No. But at least you know what to expect. And he had a better season. I mean, more turnovers, but more yards, more touchdowns. And the team finished better. So I'm saying, if you get James to clean up some of those picks and stop throwing pick sixes all the time and start the games out, now your team could go, instead of 6-10, 7-9 or whatever, you could potentially flip that to 9-7. And boom, you're right back in business. So that would be my first one. If also, I guess another one would be if I'm the Titans, do I stick with Ryan Tannehill and hope that this magic, whatever he had this year, doesn't wear off? Or do I try to poach a Tom Brady, who may very well, though doesn't have any connections really to Tennessee, may very well want to, outside the Mike Vrabel thing, may want to play for that. And obviously, the similar concept is a strong running game, you know that already, assuming they don't screw up and don't bring Derrick Henry back. You have better weapons than you had in with the Patriots this year. Obviously, there's no Julian Edelman on the team. You have A.J. Brown, who could be that. Corey Davis, who's a top pick, though. They may move on from him. Humphreys, who's solid. Delaney Walker, I think, still there, though. We'll see how much they use him, because they like Jonnu Smith a lot. You have Deion Lewis, who's there, who used to be a Patriot, if he's still going to be there. Offensive line is solid. Not bad, not great, but just it's a solid offensive line. And like I said, they have Derrick Henry, so that's already much improvement. Tom Brady likes to do a lot of play action stuff, so that's what they did with Tannehill. So would I risk this 1 year Tannehill being a Cinderella story to go try to maybe win the division with Tom Brady? Honestly, if I'm Tennessee, I would consider it. Now, the only issue is the money. Because you can't afford, no one can, the Patriots can't even afford this, to pay Tom Brady $30 million a year at 43 years old. That's just not a smart allocation of resources. It wouldn't make any sense. So, they can't do that. And Tannehill shouldn't cost that much. He should start closer to like 15 to 20, I would think. I mean, we'll see what his market looks like, but that's what I would pay for Tannehill. It's about like 15, 20 a year. Not even like a 2-year deal. Again, like I said, you don't want this to, you don't want to be too tied into it just in case this was just a one-hit wonder kind of situation. Like everything kind of clicked right with him. Like there's no guarantee he'll be able to repeat this. At least I know Tom Brady is pretty much good all the time. But at the same time, Tom Brady did look a little bad last year in terms of even though the weapons around him were not good at all. So that hurt him. But even there were some times where some throws he was making or some decisions he was making, you're just like, Tom Brady doesn't normally make that throw, or Tom Brady doesn't normally miss that throw, or Tom Brady doesn't normally miss that read. And that was the thing that happened to him throughout the season this year, outside of the fact that his weapons obviously weren't up to a Tom Brady caliber of weapons. So, honestly, I take back what I said. If I'm Tennessee, I might stick with Tannehill in this scenario, just because bringing Tom Brady up to pay him $30 million a year at age 43 does not seem that smart, especially when you have to re-sign Derrick Henry. Because you can't let him go. They don't really he was literally the focal points of their entire offense this year. And again, he might necessarily break down too, just because running backs aren't necessarily built to withstand that kind of workload for years and years to come. But also at the same time, they can't let him go. They would derail their whole offense. So that's something that I would. I don't think we wouldn't take the risk of losing Derrick Henry for the sake of paying Tom Brady a lot of money. So I think you probably stick with Tannehill if I'm the Titans and just have Tom Brady go and get paid somewhere else because, like I said, and no team should pay $30 million to a 43-year-old quarterback. I don't care if he's the GOAT. That's just not that smart to me. But somebody's going to do it, so we'll see what happens. Then the third team I'm going to do, just because, like I said, I could do a bunch of these teams, but it'd be too many. And then obviously maybe once the decisions are made, we can talk about this a little bit more. But if I'm, say, who else? If I'm, say, the Raiders. If I'm the Raiders, do I keep Derek Carr or do I trade him and bring in Teddy? Now, I will say Derek Carr, since that back injury, has been okay. Not bad, not great. Just like, he's alright. Like this past year, he threw for 4,000 yards, 21 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. The year before, 4,019 and 10. The year before, well, this was after the back. He came back from the back, 3,500 yards, 22 and 13. The good year he had before he got hurt, he was at almost 4,000. He finished at almost 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions, and that was through 15 games. All right, so he played almost the entire season. But yeah, so this past season he had a great running game with Josh Jacobs, obviously, though he got banged up towards the end of the season, and things just didn't go well at the end. And I'm not 100% certain that John Gruden is sold on Derek Carr. And I mean, I would get it to a degree. I would. Because it's like, how many games are you going to win because Derek Carr was your quarterback? Like, I don't know how many, like, since he's been with the Raiders, how many games are you like, wow, if we didn't have Derek Carr in this game, we lose this game? And I mean, obviously, he's had good games. A lot of that probably was during that 2016 season. And I honestly think they might have I think they played the Texans in that playoff game. Like, they probably beat the Texans if Derek Carr played, especially at the level he was playing at that season. Because I don't know, who did they start in that game? The 2016, that was before Deshaun got there, so that might have been like a Brock Osweiler start, like a TJ Yates or something. Like, they were starting somebody that's not a starting quarterback in the league anymore. So, and also, I just don't know if him getting booed, leaving Oakland, is the guy that will instill confidence in the new Las Vegas Raiders fan base. At least you could sell people on the optimism of Teddy. just because he's been a starting quarterback before. He's made it to the playoffs. He was good this past year. 5-0, and also he's a similar quarterback to Derek Carr in terms of like he's going to be a guy that's going to not really turn the ball over that much. He's going to be good in the short passing game. Doesn't really have the strongest arm, but can make some throws. And also, he's a situation where some people question his arm strength, and now Las Vegas is the dry heat's going to be an interesting thing to deal with. But he's from Florida, so it's not like he's going to a cold weather place. Like he's not going to Chicago. He's not going to who else? That's right. He's not going to New England. Like he's not going to any of those type of places. He's going to a place in Las Vegas that's going to be warm, just like it is in Florida, where he's from, just like it was at Louisville. Like that's not, or just like it was. Well, I guess Minnesota was a difference for him. Just like it was New Orleans, like he played in a dome. Like that's not, the weather was not really a factor for him. And I think that's why I think at least I could sell my fan base a little bit more on Derek Carr. But you have to decide this soon. Like you can't be like, do we want to trade him? Do we want to wait to see before if we get Teddy first and then trade him? Like all that stuff, because it's just like you can't want to trade Derek Carr, then don't trade him, and then he comes back, or that'd be a disaster. So they need to decide this pretty soon, one way or the other. Like, are we keeping Derek Carr, or are we not keeping Derek Carr? And I think Teddy's also okay. So Derek Carr is about to turn 29 next month. Teddy is 27, I believe. So he's a full. I think, year younger, if not almost 2 years. Yeah, so he turned 27 in November. So he's a full, he's almost 2 years younger than him. I guess he is 2 years younger than him. Like one and change, almost 2 years. So that's an extra 2 years. He doesn't have the wear and tear on his body because he's been a backup the past 2 years. So he's not coming in beat up. He's not coming in bruised. Anything. He'd be ready to go once the season starts. And like I said, I just feel like that change would just be welcomed for the Raiders, just because. Like I said, the last image of Derek Carr is him getting booed out of Oakland because they blew the lead in that game. It's not really. That's not a situation that instills confidence in a new fan base, personally, at least. And like I said, it's up to John Gruden. John Gruden thinks Derek Carr's a guy, and all right, boom, keep him. If you don't think he's a guy, you have to trade him. You can't be like us. Like I know there's been some articles out there, but it's not. You can't be like, we thought about trading him, but we decided to go against. We weren't really sure, and then now you're just stuck with Derek Carr in like this weird limbo state. Like that doesn't help anybody. So just like if you are on Derek Carr, be all in. If you're not all in, get him out of there. Bring somebody else in. And I think if they're going to bring somebody else in that situation between him and Teddy, I might have to side with Teddy in that one, just because I don't know what more there's left for Derek Carr to do on the Raiders. Not that he's done a lot, just in terms of the way people view him, the way people see him, I don't think it's going to get much better from here. So, like I said, that's just not something I would risk if I'm the Raiders. Just like sometimes change of sceneries are new and fun, and since they're going to a new city, a new stadium, a new fan base, I feel like now would be the perfect time to break that leash. And then if you do it a year too late, now there's not going to be one this many quarterbacks available in free agency next year. So now you're just going to be strictly tied to the draft. And then unless they do terrible, you're not going to be high enough to get Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields. Most likely, now you're holding out hope for the second tier guys, which might necessarily be a bad thing because we don't know who's going to rise up. I mean, no one thought Joe Burrow was going to be number one at this time last year. But yeah, you're missing out on Trevor Lawrence, you're missing out on Justin Fields, and that's the two guys that I would want right now if I'm a quarterback in any team next year. So, like I said, if you have Derek Carr, you're probably going at least 6-10, 7-9. And in a division where you have Patrick Mahomes, where you have the Chargers with new quarterbacks, so that's helpful. And then you have Drew Lock, who many people think could take that second-year leap that a lot of these guys have been taking the past couple seasons. I don't know if Derek Carr is the answer for me in that division. At least I know I can win. Teddy generally wins games when he starts. The last 4 years of start, I'm pretty sure he went 11-5 with the Vikings. Like he just generally wins games. However, Now, is that a good way to gauge people's skill level? No. But at least you know he's not going to lose you games. Like, he won't make those mistakes that are going to lose you the games. So I think that may be beneficial for the Raiders, as opposed to, just like I said, being stuck with Derek Carr and just being that same weird limbo that they've been in the past couple of years. We're like, is Derek Carr our guy? Is he not our guy? Like, what do we do with him? So if John Gruden doesn't like him, I think Teddy would be the guy. And if I'm putting 2-2 against each other, even though I think they said Teddy might cost $30 million, I think you can get him for like 25. I'd be surprised if he had like 2 or 3 teams bidding at him at $30 million per year. But I think you can get him at like 25, give him like probably like a 2-3 year contract. Probably a 3-year contract, going to opt out after 2 just in case things don't really work out. And then, bada bing, bada boom, Raiders have their new quarterback, and Vegas is happy. So that's what I would do. And like I said, you could do this for a bunch of other teams. Well, as the season, as the free agency goes along, and as the draft gets closer, we probably could do this with more teams. But for right now, those are the 3 that I'm going to go with. And maybe you guys have some more. You can, like I said, you can tweet them at me. You can post them on the Facebook page, all that fun stuff, because wherever you guys are on social media, we are also there, so you can find us there. But that'll do it for me here today on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. I want to thank you guys again, as always, for listening, for being tuned into and listening to me talk about sports for however long I talked about sports today. Like I said, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you're always on top of when we drop the latest stuff. Make sure you never miss an episode. If you could please as well also give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review. Be very helpful. Be very appreciated. Like I already said, if you're on social media, find us there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can discuss. You can tell me why Anthony Joshua is going to beat Tyson Fury if they fight. You can tell me why the Sixers is going to be fine. You can tell me why Zion's going to win the Rookie of the Year. Like, anything you guys want to talk about. More than happy to talk about with you guys. So that'll do it here again. Like I said, that'll do it here again for me. Tonight, I have been Chris Blades, and until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.